Criminal Act or mandatory minimum sentences in general are racist and inherently racially disparate?
Senator, thank you for that question as well. There has been research by the Sentencing Commission and other agencies in our government that have shown, the research has shown the racial impact of mandatory minimum sentences. It's an issue that this body and this very committee has considered. What I was referring to in the portion of my sentencing memorandum that you quoted is the Supreme Court law, their Supreme Court case law that says above and beyond a mandatory minimum, a judge does not have to impose any additional time. If the judge, in her discretion, feels that the mandatory minimum will impose what Congress has stated the standard is, a sentence that is sufficient but not greater than necessary, then the judge...
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm diving into a gripping moment from Capitol Hill. Senator Josh Hawley recently questioned one of President Biden's judicial nominees on some pressing issues, including systemic racism in the U.S. criminal justice system, mandatory minimum sentencing, and constitutional principles. Now this nominee is being considered for a federal judgeship, which is a lifetime appointment. These hearings allow senators to dig into nominees' legal philosophies and past decisions. Senator Hawley wasted no time and jumped straight into one of the most contentious issues in modern America: systemic racism in the criminal justice system.
Agencies in our government that have shown, the research has shown the racial impact of mandatory minimum sentences. It's an issue that this body and this very committee has considered. What I was referring to in the portion of my sentencing memorandum that you quoted is the Supreme Court law, their Supreme Court case law that says above and beyond a mandatory minimum, a judge does not have to impose any additional time. If the judge, in her discretion, feels that the mandatory minimum will impose what Congress has stated the standard is, a sentence that is sufficient but not greater than necessary, then the judge does not have to add time on top of that. And so the argument that I was making to the judge was, look, court, if you feel the mandatory minimum imposes a sufficient but not greater than necessary sentence on Mr. Taylor here, please do not add additional time on top.
Let me ask you a question that I've asked other nominees that have come before this committee. Do you think that the U.S. criminal justice system is systemically racist or is infected with systemic racism and bias?
Well, Senator Hawley, those are not terms that I use. In the law, when we look at issues of race, we look at discrimination, which has very specific standards under Supreme Court and statutory law in terms of making findings. And so courts will be generally looking for attorneys to prove up discriminatory intent, discriminatory impact, in some cases retaliation. There's no Supreme Court doctrine.
The big question was whether the nominee believes systemic racism exists and how it might influence the law. Hawley started by bringing up a specific case involving mandatory minimum sentencing. The nominee had argued against applying the 15-year mandatory minimum under the Armed Career Criminal Act in an armed robbery case. Hawley questioned the rationale behind this, specifically citing the nominee's statements about racial disparities in sentencing. The nominee defended their argument, pointing to research showing the racial impacts of mandatory minimums, but also highlighted the legal standards they followed. It's a fine line between legal interpretation and broader social implications. The conversation took a sharp turn when Hawley asked directly, "Does the nominee believe the U.S. criminal justice system is systemically racist?" The nominee carefully responded, saying that terms like systemic racism aren't used in the legal framework and that courts focus on proving discriminatory intent and impact in specific cases. It's a nuanced answer, but Hawley pushed back, wanting to know if the nominee's personal beliefs aligned with their professional legal reasoning. This raises a broader question. How much should personal beliefs influence a judge's interpretation of the law? Towards the end, the focus shifted to religious liberty. Hawley referenced the nominee's previous service on the board of a Christian school and questioned how their views on religious freedom align with constitutional precedent. The nominee reiterated their commitment to following Supreme Court rulings and ensuring the protection of religious rights under the Constitution. It's a fascinating moment where legal principles and personal convictions intersect. At the end of the day, these hearings are about more than just one nominee. They're about the future of the judiciary and the principles that will guide our legal system. Senator Hawley's questioning highlighted key issues that go beyond politics, touching on justice, equality, and constitutional integrity. Whether you agree or disagree with his approach, these are conversations worth having. Don't forget to like, share, and comment below. Thanks for watching.